And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. I am your griot, your sensei, here to tell you a story. And don't believe a word I say. And this program is not for children, you know, people with a mind that only believes in Buddy. Eddie M. Good evening, Bob. Eddie. Good to see you, buddy. So, where you from, Ed? What's your story? Share with the cadre. I've been thinking of mortality and death. Right, I've died 6 times so far in this life, and I have 3 more to go. And I realize that if you're not ready to die, you're really not ready to live. If you're scared of death, and think about suicide, you are not understanding what life's about. What do you think life's about, Ed? Okay, Deus? And what do you think you are? Let's see. Mm. Mm-hmm. I have a friend who sent me an interesting little thing from a national, I don't know what this organization, National Faith Advisory Board. What is faith? Let's see. Not sure, Bob, but I have faced death a few times. Yes, that's good. Facing death is basically your ability to have perspective, right? Most people believe, I don't believe in anything. I have faith in love's co creation, right? I serve love's co creation to, in every day and every way, take the peace to the earth and make it stronger. I serve the we and me. My life is not about me, it's about the we. It's about all our relations. And as I was telling a friend today, that what's going down, I'm old enough to remember, I was a kid in the 50s. I was a teenager in the 60s, and I was, a young adult um, in the 70s, 20 years old, in my 20s in the 70s, and 30s in the 80s, and 40s in the 90s, 50s in the early O's. So I remember the 1970s. People go, "Oh, the world is so terrible now." Oh, no, sorry. It is, especially in the United States, the 1970s were pretty hairy times, right? And crime was way up. New York City was bankrupt. They fired half the police, and it was very interesting times. And so we're entering interesting times because the Piscean Age ended in 2012 with the end of the Mayan calendar. And the Aquarian Age started its influence in the late part of the 19th century and just kept. And in the end of the 1920s, end of the 19th century, the United States was right on the edge of being an amazing place. Nikola Tesla basically invented Star Trek technology, unlimited free electricity, transmitted without wires to any place in the world. Seems very crazy these days. And it's and the word that's important, Edward, seems. It isn't. It seems. It's being made to be seeming crazy, right? Because that crew, that hidden hand who controls and manipulates everything, is just hanging on by their fingernails. And so they have to scare the crap out of the general public to force them to allow. It's like, signing on to Facebook contract, and it's 8,000 pages long, and basically you're selling yourself to Facebook, right? And so, and same with Google. When you use Google, you're not using Google. Google's using you. But none of these things matter, because if your intent, your conscious intent, if you have an intent of love's co-creation, then all this other stuff doesn't matter. One of the major Hermetic laws is the only thing that can create is love. Anything created with ego or edifice is an illusion. So everyone who is running around, I have to pay my bills, blah, 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 no free lunch, blah, 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 blah. No, we live in a planet of abundance, When you look at all of the other planets in our solar system, Venus is Saturn, you wouldn't want to live on those countries. Jupiter, I don't think you want to live there, right? Now, our consciousness is there. See, and we are so patronizing. We can only think of, it's only a moron like me who can have a consciousness. Now I know dogs that are smarter than most people. And I find children way more insightful than grown-ups because they haven't been programmed, right? And so death is this thing that gives you perspective. It allows you to appreciate things, if you didn't, have death, you would just, be a couch potato pretty much. Now, people who are couch potatoes are basically the non-living dead. They're already dead. A good portion of the Western material capitalist society are dead. And they can't really appreciate life at all. MJ, good to see you, bud. We are talking about life and death, right? And that they are basically irrelevant. They are elements of the dynamic of your avatar. You are not your body. Edward, have you been thinking about what you are? What are you, Edward? And same to you, MJ. What are you? Why are you here? Did the great creator put us on this earth to be merchants? Really? And many religions, a good example, we're coming towards Thanksgiving. And, the story of Thanksgiving is a fictitious thing, because you have to realize the folk who came over from Europe, who were the pilgrims, they were merchants. They had no experience with farming. They had no idea on how to survive in the wilderness. They lived in cities, and their semi-Christian religion was basically what is now considered financial prosperity Christianity, and that was the pilgrims, right? And in England, they were kind of, the Church of England, and which was more a political entity, and So the Pilgrims wanted religious freedom. So they came to America. They bought with money and borrowed money from the East Dutch, somebody like the East Dutch Company who wanted them to go there and extract resources from the indigenous and, sell it to them. So they were totally spiritually and physically in a transactional state. Everything was money. So they show up, and they show up kind of in late summer, early fall. They have no idea what to eat. They have, no experience with the forest or herbs or growing anything, and so they're basically starving to death. And so they're, many politicians use the term of the city, the golden city on the hill, right? Well, there was a tribe of folk where the Pilgrims were, Pusviat, Puspatak, or Pus something, and they were one of the more successful Indian groups that were around in New England, right? And they had a big tribe on top of that hill, and they had everything ordered, and they had growing crops, and so they, felt, compassion for the Pilgrims, and they fed them that winter, right? And that was after the Pilgrims found that they had corn and other staples in their burial grounds, meaning part of the ceremonial process for that Indian tribe was to bring food to their ancestors who were buried there, because they needed food in the afterlife. And they had storehouses too. And the, Pilgrims went and stole from the Indians. And they said, well, the Indians are heathens, they don't believe in Jesus, so it's okay for us to steal and cheat and lie to them. And, that tribe, they understood. So they let them do it, and they brought them food, and they helped them survive that winter. And then that summer, spring and summer, they showed them how to grow food and how to, prepare for the winter. And when Thanksgiving came, the harvest was, and the Indians had a great harvest, and the, Puritan, the those guys with the people, they basically didn't do so well. So they had a big feast, and the Indians shared. They brought everything, to them, and they had a mead of sort, and so everyone got a little buzzed and had a good time. And then the Indians went home, and the Pilgrims were kind of drunk and said, it's not fair that these Indians have all of this stuff. We have guns, they don't. Why don't we just go up there and take it? And that's what they did. They went up there the night of after the celebration. They went up there and they killed all 300 of the tribe, women, children, and then took over their property and took over their fields. And that was Thanksgiving. And pretty much that is what, Anglo white Europeans have done in indigenous lands, and for folk to say, if people are going to tell us that story, it's like cancel culture. I mean, white people are the exceptional ones who's supposed to rule. I mean, I'm an anthropologist, and anthropology was originally developed to prove that white men were superior to everybody else. And this is the real interesting dynamic that we are experiencing, that Edward says things are pretty crazy. It's that whole dynamic of, and the United States, the demographic has already turned against the white male They already aren't superior. They already are losing in numbers, and they aren't reproducing. White men are more infertile than any other racial group. And in reality, humans are humans. I'm an African American that's melanin challenged. My if just because I have white skin doesn't make me any smarter than anybody else. What is Edward saying here? It's not sure about anything these days, to be honest. Well, Edward, you can be sure about one thing: love. Love is the only truth there is. If you can lead your life with three things: consciously aware of who and what you are, where you are at any time, you're 360 out about 2 blocks. And if you can do that, have that kind of awareness, and all you have to do to have that is to say this little prayer. You take a big breath in, and in one breath you go, conscious aware I am, conscious aware I am, conscious aware I am, Om, until you run out of breath. Take another one. Do that 3 or 4 times, and then you say, with the idea of what your intent is, what you want your life to be, what you want to be. Conscious intent, I am. Conscious intent, I am. Conscious intent, I am. Oh, you do those 2, right? And you live your life like Jesus says. You are your brother's keeper, right? Your life is not about you, Edward. It's about the we in you, right? The we in me. And if you can keep those ideas strong and in your heart and have faith in love's co-creation, that you are the co-creator. I mean, when I asked you, what are you? You know what you are? You are the decider. When you, through, love's co-creation, through your intent, through your awareness, and through your service to the we and me, that's when you are doing your best. And that's what we are meant to do in this life, our best. And not to be perfect, because you can't be perfect, And that's what, Catholicism, all the Christian flavors try to say. You have to be perfect, right? Do what the King James Bible says. Believe in the book. You have to be perfect. Well, you can't be perfect. You can do your best, though. And every time I wired a Baptist church in Lynchburg, Virginia. I didn't wire it. I went back. I worked for this electrical company, and their boys were morons. The owner, he had 3 sons, and they could barely breathe, tie their shoelaces, but they would do electric work and screw it up. And so we started to do more than just houses. We started doing prisons and hospitals and churches, because he had been around a long time. And he was, his sons were just, costing him a great deal of money. So he got me to fix the things they did and keep an eye on them to make sure they didn't screw up. Because every time you have to go back and fix things is when you start losing money on jobs. So anyway, they wired this church, and they had a big baptismal pool, like a big jacuzzi, right? And people would go in there, and they did not ground the pool correctly. So if you were holding on that metal railing and stepped in the water, you felt that little jolt of Jesus there. And, and just a ton of things in that church was totally messed. And there's this one guy who kept giving the church a lot of money, but he kept doing things like raping girls and raping little boys. And the minister didn't turn him over to the cops and kept baptizing him. And he was born again, so he was going to go to heaven. Every time he would do that, he would give the church 10 grand, and then the minister would, basically, You're born again. You're got a clean slate, and that's kind of Christianity, right? Now, Judaism and Islam don't do that because they have they less of a business plan, right? Christianity was 100%. The Holy Roman Empire started. Rome was an empire. Rome was run by pagans, which is just another religion, and their business plan was kind of going south, so they decided to go to because Rome controlled by their military force or economic force, right? And so they could threaten you physically and they could threaten you economically. But by becoming the Holy Roman Empire, they could threaten you militarily and they could threaten you politically and they could threaten your eternal soul. Don't do what we tell you to do, you're going to hell. And that's not, God's plan or Jesus' plan. So that's what we're talking about here, right? What do we do with our life, right? And death is this kind of, point of perspective, right? And so we should, in every day and every way, take the piece of the earth and make it stronger, and and by doing that, you have a good time. And having a good time isn't, drinking a lot or doing drugs a lot or doing any of those kind of physical things a lot or hurting people or making fun or being a bully. That's not fun. What is fun is to share your excitement about your experience of your life. Go dancing, go to a nice restaurant, go to a museum, go to a movie, go to a concert, and share that experience with other people. And that's what life's about. That's living your life. Stuck someplace all by yourself, unless you are, I'm a good deal, when I'm out in the deep green, I'm all by myself. But I'm not, because I'm surrounded by trees that are my friends. The forest floor and the phylum of the mushrooms and how they interact as the information internet to all the plants and animals. I am connected to that. So, there are a lot of birds where I'm at, and they all come. And I don't have feeders. What I did was plant plants that they really like, berries and such. And there are loads of insects. I don't go after the insects. As long as the insects leave me alone, I'll leave them alone. And the birds eat them, right? And the owls are there to go after the vermin. And I have a lot of feral cats, and they don't bother me, but they go after the mice, the voles, the raccoons. And between the owls and the feral cats, it's like tag team after those guys. So everything is in balance where I'm at. Now, around me, people are like, putting traps and poison and spraying, and they have worse insects and worse, infestations of vermin than I do. I don't have a lot of food around, and so there's nothing for them to eat. And like I said, I have these feral cats that kind of hang out in my neighborhood, and they're all different types, from kitty cats that people just, oh, I don't like this cat, and they just throw it out of the car window when it's a kitten. And there are also bobcats and panthers, and they hang out in my neighborhood, right? And I talk to them, and they come up on my deck, and what they like to do is they like their space, but they like hanging out in my energy. So I'll be on my porch reading and writing, and I'll notice that, at the corner of the deck over there, 20 feet from me, is a cat. And these are big cats too. And They just sunning themselves, and I put out little bowls of water. I don't really give them food, but I do have bowls of water, and and the bowls of water are not only just for the animals to drink, but depending on the season, I have yellow jackets. And the yellow jackets just love to commit suicide in those bowls of water. Put it out, and by the end of the day, there's 20, 30 yellow jackets. So instead of them buzzing around my head, they just, go swimming in the bowl of water and drown. And my neighbors spray like constantly. It's like unfreaking believable. And I tried to show them, all you got to do is put out a little bowl of water, and those biting insects will go for a swim. So it's all about balance, being connected to all your relations and to nature. Lions, yep, mountain lions, bobcats, and they're the bobcats around me. They're about the size of a small dog, 20, 30 pounds, right? The feral cats are a little bigger than your house cat, and they're between 10 and 15 pounds. And the panthers, the black panthers, are they're like 100 pounds. And there's some smaller ones, but the females are a little smaller. Or who I can't, I've never looked at their genitalia to say that there's big ones and little ones, and I'm not quite sure if the boys are smaller than the girls or the girls. Anyway, what it is that I love them all, and I don't, get angry or threaten them, and they are, really get along with me, and they do a great service. They go after different things, and and so those things don't bother me. And I have a lot of paranormal energy in the deep green, and that too doesn't bother me. I mean, they come and visit. They do certain things that if I'm in meditation, it kind of assists the things I'm thinking about, especially when I write stories. And here I'm staying at my friend's house. This house is really haunted because it was part of a plantation, and the house that I'm in was a slave house. And, there's a portion of the house that was a slave house, and then they added on and added on and added on. And so there's a lot of history in this property and this house. And it's, the people who live in it, they are more or less unconscious to it, right? I mean, it happens around them, and it doesn't seem to bother them because they don't seem to notice it. Now, the paranormal visits me, and I'm happy that they're happy. I'm here to not be scared, but to be happy. And that's how what makes me happy is to be happy. People go, "How you doing?" And I always go, "Always good." Now, this last week, I spent a lot of time at doctors getting checked out because for the last 3 weeks, I have been on the BOP, sleeping on people's couches, and they aren't really super comfy couches. They're kind of lumpy and old, and the bar is like right in the middle of my back, so it's not like that. So, but I'm for a guy who's pretty beat up from 70-something years of being an electrician for 50 years and being a world traveler and sleeping rough all the time. I pretty much slept rough my whole life. I mean, I can find comfy places in the roughest place to sleep, but it's still living rough, So, huh, no, I don't have much. I've been thinking, what to say on the internet now that I have access. I can do this like 3 or 4 times a day. Sometimes I do, because I do, these conversations with you guys is basically stream of consciousness. I mean, I have nothing produced, I have nothing edited, I have nothing, it's just kind of what I'm thinking about at the moment, right? And I hope that it motivates the audience of the cadre here to make comments, and then I can, bounce off of that. But the world is basically, first of all, you have to realize nothing is what you think it is, right? We have been stuck in this kind of, corporate mercantile oligarchy, since Babylon, and this isn't the world that is, right? And so we've had many wars, like most of surgery and most of medicine came out of war, Whenever you get your knee replaced, that technique was devised because some guy got his knee blown off in war, right? And they spent a lot of money training him, so they just want to patch him back together so they can go out and kill more people. And that's how you make money. The United States has spent over $70 trillion between 2011 and 2018 on the military, right? And black projects, the Defense Department, the State Department, the CIA, the NSA, the DIA, NASA, you name it. There are about 100 different elements in our government that are, military. They may not. How does the State Department part of the military? It is. The CIA, it is, and all of these things since the Second World, well, since the Spanish-American War, have been corporatized and transnationalized. And end of World War II, Stan Lee of the comic book fame, his Captain America was exactly, Hail Hydra. There is that element in that at the end of World War II, the German people were bombed into the Stone Age, but the Nazis won. They had the atomic bomb that we dropped on Hiroshima was actually made by the Germans. They gave it to us, right, along with a whole bunch of other technology, and to let the Nazis skip away, through the rat mines set up by the Vatican, and they covered the world. And and the most insane thing is the Anunnaki were the Aryan race the Nazis were looking for, So you have to really, just like I told you a little story about the Pilgrims and Thanksgiving, and what it really wasn't what was advertised, and nothing ever is, right? And you never have to say you're sorry because it's not good enough, right? I love you unconditionally. And if you're just listening, that is great because I'm a griot. I'm telling you a story. You're sitting at the metaphorical footsteps to listen to my story. That's great. I love that, But saying you're sorry isn't good enough. All you have to do is do your best. You don't have to be perfect. Just do your best. And it'll always work out. You'll never have to say you're sorry. And to be conscious aware, right? It's another tool to not have to ever say you're sorry. Because if you're aware, if you're 360, 2 blocks out, you'll never have things. Most people get in trouble because they are unconscious and things get right in their grill before they know it. And so they do stupid things, and they, have to say they're sorry all the time. My second wife, who was a, Aries, Virgo, Capricorn, she couldn't stand, she wanted to kill you if you said you were sorry. And why she loved me, people looked at us and said, how are these two people together? But she was an Italian fashion designer that always looked like she came straight off the cover of Vogue. And I was, me, Now, she made my clothes for me when we ever went out together. I was dressed up quite chicly. And because I never, I was always thinking of her first, her happiness first, her safety and well-being first. So she felt safe, and she felt well, and she felt happy, and she felt entertained, and she felt all those things. And she never had to ask, like, oh, move your socks, clean the stuff in the sink, put this toilet, never had to say anything, because I did it before she could even think about it being done. So after, the first 2 or 3 years, she was like, well, this guy, I actually seem to love him because he loves me so much, and I never have to worry, and he's always got my back. And he never is thinking about himself. He's only thinking about me. And he may do things that may annoy me here or there, but they're so far and few between. The other stuff he does is so mammothly makes me happy. I'm keeping this guy, so that's why we're together 8 years. And why we still love each other. We spiritually connect, not physically anymore, because she's dead. She died in my arms of a heart attack. And when people talk about, oh, it's so tough, my life sucks because they never get my latte right. They never use the half, what, let's see you have some real sufferings. Let's see you be someone who, about 40% of all the children in America go to bed hungry because their parents are poor. And I mean, let's see you be one of those parents, right? Or the black male population is about 7% of our country's population, right? But they make up close to 70% of the people in jail. Right there, that's like, Then let's say you were living in Syria, right? That country, I visited it in the 70s. It was a nice country, It, had health care. Everyone had a house, had a job. Everyone was doing good. Everyone could do whatever the heck they wanted. Only thing they couldn't do is diss the great leader, or mess with politics, So if you didn't mess with politics, you could do whatever the heck you want. Same thing. I was in Iraq in the early 70s when Saddam was just, taking on his post. And we put him there. And we put Bashar in power too, as like we did with the Shah and like we did with the, uh, Saudi Arabia, that family, the Saudi family. They had no authority to run a country. And all those countries were made up, by English, French, and American diplomats on napkins. It's like nothing is as it should be, and it won't be this way for very much longer. But we're in this Venn diagram because the Piscean age is all gone, but it's inertia. 16,000 years of war and corruption and murder and mayhem and has made our society a sociopathic society. No wonder everyone's nuts. I'm a person who, serves, loves co-creation. I'm a person who not believes, but lives for the we in me. Man, I'm there to help everyone around me, right? And that gives me joy, and it gives me happiness. And I never worry about anything. I just serve love's co-creation. And I have faith in love's co-creation. I don't believe in anything. So, Ed, word, you don't have to be sorry. You just have to do your best. And whatever that is, I am happy, right? I am unconditionally appreciative of your existence, right? And that's, I'm feeling that way towards you. You pass it on to the next person, and the next person. And that's how you get peace on earth, through the little things, right? So there's only one person left, and 5 thumbs up. I appreciate that. And anybody watching who's not subscribed, that would be good. And anybody wants to talk to me, mano a mano, you can get a hold of me on the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. And if you want to, I have very limited funds, and like somebody sent me a nice little gift on my PayPal. You go to PayPal and they'll say what email, and you put in the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail, and people do that. I don't depend on it, but it's very nice when it shows up, and I appreciate it. And the folks who have, in the last 2 weeks, have sent things my way, thank you very much. And I love you dearly, and I love the rest of the cadre. Whether they send me money or not, it's not a problem. I love you unconditionally, And before I do this show, I go into state and I put the shamanic juice, the special sauce, into each of these shows, and it goes there for you, right? So you can go, and I have, oh gosh, I bet you close to 2,000 shows. I've been doing this now for 3 years. And at the beginning, when I was at John's, I did 2 or 3 shows a day. So I had and then I used to be able to do it over my phone, but when Facebook bought out, or Google bought out YouTube, whoever bought them out, they changed the rules of the game constantly, right? And so basically what we're going to see is more and more unbelievable strangeness, but it won't be too strange because it's just, a soap opera cartoon cutout. And all you have to do to navigate all of this chaos is just to have love in your heart, and to serve your neighbor and your fellow man, be kind to everyone and yourself, and to every day in every way take the peace of the earth and make it stronger. And that's all you have to do, and the folks who are mean and cruel, it starts out with having bad thoughts. Bad thoughts bring bad words, which bring bad actions, which bring bad outcomes. But if you have good thoughts, you speak good words and have good actions and good outcomes. And if we all did that, supported, realize that we are our brother's keeper, and that we are kind, patient, humble, and have hospitality to the folks who need it. And that's one of the greater things about Islam, is that Islam's major tenet is hospitality, right? And Sharia law runs around that, meaning you're supposed to, if you see a poor guy and you're a baker, you give him a loaf of bread. And if he steals the loaf of bread from you, you can say to Sharia law, hey, I want you to cut this guy's hand off. And they will say, fine. But if we're going to cut his hand off, we're going to take both of yours because you should have given him that loaf of bread. And that's what Sharia law is. It's pretty harsh, but it's not meant to be used, Oh, you said a bad word? Well, we're going to cut your head off. No, sorry. Islam is not that way. It's a loving religion. And most religions are loving religions. It's the folks who take that and use it as a mind control to force people to believe X, Y, and Z that they can then punish them or force them to go kill somebody else in Jesus' name, you know? So that is what it is, right? And so that's why I do these shows. And sometimes, I don't do them as often, right? Especially now that I have pretty good access to the internet. Some days I'll do 3 shows. Some days I'll do 1 show. Some days I don't do any shows because I have to have that space that I can project the shamanic force out into the internet. And if I can't get on a jag or have a good idea, so, the thing I started with is death, because that's one thing that most people are scared of. And you look at a guy like Aldous Huxley, who wrote, Brave New World. And another book he wrote was called Doors of Perception, right? And he got into what perception was and what was going on. And so our 6 senses are basically can perceive 0.0049% of the universe. The rest of the 99.4999% of the universe we can't see. Back in the day, before we had instrumentality to measure radio waves and radioactivity and infrared and other spectrums of energy, we had no idea that they were there. But once we discovered them, yes, we could. So those are the 6 and above, right? And so that is a real thing, is that if you live with conscious intent, and just not be a lazy slug, but have, I want to serve love's co-creation. That's an intent, and then, conscious intent I am. Conscious intent you will do that, right? You won't be the lazy slug. You won't be the mean, cruel person. You won't say the mean words. You won't be the bully. You will be that loving entity that we are, right? And not the cruel monster that we can be. So if you look at all the horrors that are going on around the world, it is, and then you put it up to the denominator of the 7 point something billion people, it's not that big a deal. And if we were more compassionate about these situations, then we could ameliorate the pain and suffering by a great deal. But, why is the war in Yemen still going on? Why is, Saudi Arabia bombing people with the airplanes that we sell them and the bombs we sell them? And we give, Israel tons of foreign aid that are weapons, and, Lockheed Martin and Grumman and Boeing and General Dynamics and Sperry and Raytheon, they're all making fortunes out of war, right? And so if we, Eisenhower before, hours before JFK was sworn in, Eisenhower, while he's still president, gives a speech on TV about the military-industrial complex. Now, he's been part of that his whole freaking life. He was a general. He was, in the military. He's president. He was, very well aware of all of the above. But he wanted to retire and just go up and play golf and play with the grandkids. And that speech he gave was the speech that cut him off from doing any more of that crap. So he could just go play golf and play with the kids, right? Well, John is a wacky guy. He's more than a wacky guy, He represents, he is the, and I'm wearing my canary outfit here. he is the canary in the human coal mine. In Plato's cave of consciousness. Where we're chained in. What's going on outside of the cave is behind us, and the wall of the cave is in front of us, and the light comes from behind and makes a shadow of what's going on behind us, and that's all we can see because our neck is like tied to a post and we can't move, and all we see is the shadow, and that's where we're at now. And John is totally caught up in the shadow of life. He can't live a life. He's miserable. He's always talking about God and Jesus, and you've got to do the right thing or you're going to go to hell. Well, buddy, that guy's already in hell, and heaven and hell is right here, right now. Right now, I'm really sick all the time, but I eat well. I am very disciplined about how I, um, deal with my body, and I'm in I'm out most of the time in the middle of the forest. That can be dangerous, but I am consciously aware of everything around me, so I don't fall down, I don't trip, I don't, fall off a cliff. These are all things I could do because that's the environment I live in. So, John, just like a great deal of, and that's why he is the metaphor of the human race, and he has great talents. He's a really good musician, really good visual artist, a painter, really good filmmaker, really good actor. Really, I mean, he goes in. All his characters are really real, right? But he has no real passion or love of any of that. Why I'm really good at everything I do is that I don't do anything I don't love doing. So I'm pretty good. So John is also so anxious about everything. It's hard for other human beings to even be near him because he puts people off. And he shouldn't. He's a sweet, nice guy. I spent 2 years trying to lead by example, and there are a lot of, I don't know what John did with the videos, but that's what you folks love the old crone video that was on his channel. That was, I was basically doing that for John as a lesson. And all the videos I did on John's channel were basically lessons for John. Never picked up on anything. Right now, a little bit of me rubbed off because he's way less neurotic than he was when he first, I first met him like 6 years ago, and but still, he can't go down and I mean, he's got a ton of degrees. He's got undergraduate degrees and master's degrees in visual arts, filmmaking, all kinds of. He could teach, no problem. I mean, they're having colleges are looking for college professors, and John would fit right in. He would, be that teacher they wanted. Me, not so much. I'm a good researcher. I mean, back in the day, for 30 years, I was the itinerant scholar working at different universities, researching things. And that worked out. But the money for that is gone. They already done everything. They've studied everything they want to study. And what they really want to do is knock off a good 3/4 of the human race, and the white male in Europe and the United States has lost its sperm modality by 60%. So there's going to be a lot less white people around because of that. And what's really interesting is that there are a number of women that are self-inseminating. I mean, they don't go to a doctor and they squirt them with a turkey baster. They are actually doing the Mother Mary thing of having a virgin birth, right? And so that's actually happening, and other species that's happening, right? So things are really interesting, and the media is not covering anything except what the rich people are telling them. Like Billy Boy, a micro theft. is big billionaire guy, and he's putting, I'm giving all my money away. Well, not really. He's investing in all these different nonprofits so he can control the world. So so John is not a wacky guy. He's just super nihilistic, super neurotic. He's not crazy. I mean, he's not manic depressant. He's not anything. He's a Libra, so he's doing this seesaw thing all the time, and he's susceptible. There's certain, meaning, coffee to John is like crack cocaine, and so he goes psychotic when he drinks. I have 1 or 2 cups of coffee a day, and that's good for me. Yeah, I don't know. He has pots and pots of it, and because it energizes him. With that, when he gets psychotic, he's not psychotic. He's just drank 16 cups of coffee in less than 2 hours. So, and he knows all this. I've talked to him about it for 2 straight years, and his diet. It's pretty simple. I've lost 220 pounds, and I'm still losing. I spent all this time at the doctors, and 2 of the doctors, blood pressure, weight, oxygen in my bloodstream, and my temperature. So everything was perfect, and I lost since the last time I had my weight taken at my other doctors. I lost 5 pounds in 4 months, right? And it's because what I eat. Because I am diabetic, I can't really eat a lot of fast food or cookies or sodas or bread or any of those. I can have a little bit of bread, can have a cookie here and there, but I can't eat a lot of anything except vegetables, right? So I eat fish, tofu, and green, spinach, kale, escarole, all of those guys I eat a lot of. And that's my diet. And dandelion and burdock and everything in the forest. So that's why my health is good. That's why, even though I can't afford the medicines they want me to be on, they, so my blood pressure, it's somewhere between 120 and 140 over, 50 to 60, which is pretty good. And I don't take any, diabetic medicine, right? And my AC1 or ACL or whatever it is, the average of your blood sugar over a period of time is 6, which is very good, right? And my SITS level, my level of quality of being infection, having infections is very low. So my cholesterol is pretty good, even though I have high cholesterol. It's still better, and I can't take the statins and things because it really, A, I can't afford them, and B, they have make me super constipated, which is no fun at all. And so I have been able to keep in the last 6 years, and I have really charcoal legs are pretty nasty because all the bones in your ankles and feet turn to mush, and because of that, it does stuff to the gooey stuff of you have your skin, your derma, and then the gooey stuff, and then you have the muscles, and then you have the bones. Anyway, when you have charcoal legs, you can get infections pretty easily in your legs and feet. But because I take care of my feet and I take care of my diet and I exercise a good deal, I'm for 5 years I haven't had any infections and all this stuff, and that's why my endocrinologist says, "Hey, you're the most healthiest dead guy I know," right? And so, and I have no money, and I live like a millionaire, and life is good for me, and everyone could be in this category, And John is a good example of the people who are miserable, and they make themselves, they blame everyone else. But whatever goes on in your life is not about you. But the actions you do is about you. You can't blame anybody. Oh, the devil made me do that. No, you did that. And if you lie, steal, cheat, uh, no one else did that but you, and you have to live with those consequences. And that's why I don't lie, steal, and cheat, because I don't want to keep looking over my shoulder. I don't want to have to, remember what I like being, and I can't. I'm the world's worst liar. I can't lie, and whenever it comes to, like, in business, I could never cheat people. Now, I could, like, I used to make a lot of restaurants, build, wire a lot of fancy restaurants. And so I did so many, I knew exactly what they needed all the time, more than the architect knew. So I'd say, oh, so you're going to have this, you need to have a coffee station over here, or you need to have refrigeration here so they have to go all the way into, the walk-in or into the kitchen, you know. And so, they would say, well, that's not in the blueprint, the architect. I said, but you need that, right? So they would say, oh, we're not going to do that. So as I would be putting, I would wire things with pipe instead of just BX, because when you put pipe in, you can pull more wires in. And some things where I knew they were going to need this, I would pull the wire anyway, right? And have it ready, right? And have a box there. And so when they would go, oh, you're right, we need that. And I would say, because I would charge X amount for circuits, X amount for the distance from the panel, X amount for the device itself, the switch, the plug, the outlet, whatever. And so, or disconnect, right? So I would wire all of that stuff in, even though it wasn't in the contract, but I knew they would do it. And in the contract, it said, this is what it costs. This is how long it's going to take. This is how you pay me. And anything extra is extra, right? And it will be billed to you as an extra. So, they would end up having to want to do a ton of things that I knew they were going to need. And I would have put them there, because when you're putting it in, right, brand new, especially the pipe, pulling another wire is no big deal, right? And leaving it in the box, waiting for someone needing it, no big deal, right? And so, and making the circuit breaker box big enough for all those extra circuits that are going to be there, no big deal. When you're doing it new, right? It's not a big deal. To try and do it afterwards, that's a big deal. And I would say, okay, it's an extra, and I have a new circuit. Well, it's not just X, it's X plus Y, right? So they would say, okay, so there'd be like 20 different things that were all, extras. And, but and they say, oh, but we're opening up tomorrow. And and I said, well, I'm going to have to, and so I would go in at night and just fix it all up and get it ready. And the next day they'd come in, it would be all done. And they'd go, how'd you do that? And I said, it's magic. And they were so happy that it was done and the walls weren't destroyed and everything looks great and it works perfect. They were happy to pay that extra, and extra, 100% more for those extras than because I said, anybody else, they would have ripped the place apart and then they'd have to get the plaster and the painter but nope. And so that's not lying or cheating. That's being prepared. And that's the difference, right? And so I wasn't stealing anything from them. I was giving them service and but I didn't have to, wasn't really a terrible thing for me, So there's the big difference between lying, cheating, and stealing. Being prepared is not lying, cheating, and stealing, Thinking ahead and having experience and understanding what is needed is not lying, cheating, and stealing. And I would tell people, no, you do need this. You're going to need this. You're going to want this. Oh, no, we don't want it. It's not in the blueprint. It's no, how much is that going to cost? $300? And then I said, but if you want, if I put it in now, it's only $300. But if you want me to put it in after the job is all done as an extra, it's going to be like $5,000. And I'd say it up front. And but they would be happy to pay it because it was like done like when they needed it, even though they thought it would take longer. And I didn't rip up anything. It was perfect and it looked good and it worked. So they be so that's not lying, cheating, or stealing. Right? That's knowing your trade, right? And you tried to talk them into it. You tried to explain to them what it was. It's like when I did service calls, people would call up, my light doesn't work. And I go, well, did you check the light bulb? My light doesn't work. Is there a switch on the circuit? My light doesn't. Is the lamp plugged in? Light, And I said, okay, you want me there? I'll come right now. But you need to go down to the bank or the cash machine and get me 2 Benjamins. I'm going to show up. I'm going to hit the doorbell. I'm going to be at your front door, and I'm going to have my hand out. If you don't put 2 Benjamins in, I'm just going to turn around and walk away and not talk, not answer the phone when I know it's you. So 95% of the time, I would go in there. I would put my hand out. They would put, and this is only for really rich people, they'd put 2 Benjamins in my hand. And then I'd say, show me what doesn't work. And they show it to me. And I usually look around and warn them and say, oh, look, there's a light switch on the other side of the door. I said, do you ever notice that light switch over there? No, I never knew that was there. I would go over, and if it's a single pole switch, it has on and off written on it. I turn it on, and usually the light would light. Oh. And I turn around and go, but you only took 3 minutes to do that. And why should I pay $200? Because when I talked to you on the phone, I said, hey, did you check the light bulb? Did you see if the lamp is turned on? Did you see if it's plugged in? Is there a light switch in the room that may control that outlet? I said all those things. And I also said, if I show up, you have to put 2 Benjamins in my hand before I walk through your door. But you cheated me. You lied. No, I didn't. And that's the problem with people. They want to, they're not to blame. You're to blame. They want to have their own private reality that doesn't go along with the rest of the universe, And they do the same stupid thing over and over and over again, expecting a different outcome. And Freud said that is what insanity. That's the definition of insanity. So, death is a great vehicle for understanding and appreciation, humility, and patience, right? And these are the things we need. So John Boy ain't a wacky guy. It's he's a sad guy. He is a self punishing guy. He's a every problem he has, he makes it himself, right? I mean, he lives in a really nice house. It was it was the school, and I basically took paid the taxes on it for 12 years. I never called it, I own this. This is mine. No, I was like in service to the school, service to the hill. Right? Tried to do the best I could with that place. But it just ended up as my warehouse, and there were things wrong with it that needed to be fixed. And I got sick. I couldn't do it. I ran out of money. I couldn't do it. And I basically sold it to John. And I paid off all my bills and, went on a life of living like a millionaire on $400 a month. And so you can do what you are, the decider in your life. You can't say you're sorry, and you can't blame anybody else. Everything is on your nickel, and you have to and when you do your best, be your best. And that's John's problem. He's not, he always wants to be perfect. He can't be perfect. So he gives up being his best, or even trying to be his best, right? He's only, I'm going to do 1,000 push-ups. I'm going to, lift 8 million pounds in my weights. Yeah, but instead of, doing a simple kind of exercise every day, 4 or 5 times, that's what I do. I walk probably 5 or 6 miles a day just walking around, right? And in the deep green, it's my man cave is here, my lodge is up here where the toilet is, and my spiritual temple is on top of my mountain. So from man cave to lodge, it's about a football field's walk. From there up to my spiritual celestial palace is probably a quarter of a mile, and I kind of walk those every day, 5 to 20 times a day. So that's a good 5 miles, give or take, and that's why my legs work. Because it's on the dirt, on earth. My feet are connected, to the chi of the earth, Mother Earth. Instead of, most people walk on concrete all day, and that's terrible for your legs and I can't do it. It really causes me great pain to walk on concrete. For any, like when I go into a store, I can't just, I have to be in the motorized shopping cart. So that's what death is a great diviner of life. If you're not ready to die, you're not ready to live. And if you're scared of death, you're going to be scared of life, right? And so if you're not, your life is not about you, it's about everybody else. And if you're not living to serve, all our relations, that's everybody else, then you're not really learning anything about your life. And if you're not deciding, if you just go by the rule book and you're not deciding, and the two things that um, are sacred to you is belief and, convenience. If that's what motivates you, then you're not having a life, right? And I do these shows to share with you, right? I'm doing this show not for me, but for you, right? I'm here for you, right? And I know I have a positive effect on you because, all of you who have talked to me. I mean, you can talk to me here on the chat, and this is very nice. And it's a nice community, and it's very good. But it's very public too. It's like on the internet, everyone can see it, right? But if you get a hold of me at the dudeawake42 at Gmail, you and I can have a one-on-one. And there are probably about 50 to 100 people who over the month I have a conversation with, right? And I'm very, 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 very actively listening to what they're talking about in the email and how they feel and all of the above. And if you guys live in the United States, send me your phone number. I'll give you a call. And there are loads of people I talk to on the phone. And there are people around the world that I use WhatsApp with. And so there are a lot of ways to have a good private conversation, as 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 private as the NSA will allow. They're listening to everything. So is Google. So is Facebook. There is. We live in back in the early '90s when I was at Cornell. I was shown a smartphone, right? And Apple wasn't even in existence then, or it might have been just, but they definitely didn't have. Nobody had cell phones really. I mean, there were some. Motorola had things, but they were the size of a car battery, or a banana. And I was shown, one that looks like present day smartphone, and I saw it, and they wanted me to do a cold reading. What is this thing? And I told them that it was a device for surveillance economy. And the guy nearly fell off the chair because that's exactly what our smartphones are. Everything you do on it, every transaction, every conversation, every message, everything you look on the internet is being registered. It's like, and they can use algorithms to figure out what you're going to do before you know what you're going to do, right? So If you ever wanted to, if you think the deep state is terrible, or Dick Cheney was terrible, or you thought Donnie was terrible, or Obama was terrible, or Jojo, the used car salesman, was bad, or any of the congressmen or senators. Well, all you have to do, if you don't have to like go to the Congress, with a pitchfork. All you have to do is stop buying stuff. That's it. That's all you have to do. And the other thing, you could be from the school of George Carlin, and he basically said, "Don't vote; it's useless." Right. And what I love mostly about Donald Trump is that he lied so much that he told the truth. And he wasn't a schooled politician. He didn't know how to flim flam, right? Didn't know how to bunk them, right? And so I'm getting tired. So I'm going to pack it in here. And again, I'll try and do another one tomorrow and see where we get with that. And I love you guys, and sweet dreams. And I'll talk to you tomorrow. And if more of you could show up for the chat and come with ideas that I could talk about, because when I do a show, I try to go into state and try to get a consensus in state on what to talk about. I think it might be, but let's try and see if you guys can come. MJ, Edward, come with an idea, a question you want to ask me, right? So anyway, I'm going to go to bed now.